no.
As we linger in the middle portion of the Goosebumps series, we seem to have slipped into a pattern, alternating between books that leave much to be desired and books that actually aren't half bad. That would mean we're in the good book part of the rotation, so I got excited. Well, excited's not the right word. I managed to get out of bed for it. And a shocker on Shock Street starts off pretty promisingly. Our protagonists this time around are Erin and Marty, two best friends who like to hang out and watch horror movies together, namely the Shock Street series, which as far as I can tell is a series of films where about a dozen wildly different monsters at a time attack the same street over and over again. The book opens with the two kids watching the latest entry, a shocker on Shock Street 6, which has a giant crab monster with a wolf head, which is like, I guess it's unique, but also incredibly lazy. Now, this first chapter does have a fake-out scare where it's written in a way where you think these two kids are actually being chased by this blown-up STD, but are instead watching a scene in the movie theater. And that's a pretty stock-standard Goosebumps fake-out, not entirely unpredictable. But as these things go, it's a really well-constructed one. Stine opted for careful word choice to hide the truth of the scene in a way that when you read it a second time, you go, oh, okay, yeah, they're reacting to a movie, that makes sense. It's not a novel idea, but it's not cheap either. It really feels like Stine put in the work with this opening chapter, and that's more exciting than it should be. Hooray, you did your job adequately! But does the rest of the book maintain this quality? Spoilers, but not really. Erin and Marty are actually watching a sneak preview of this Shock Street movie. Erin's dad works for the studio who makes the movies, so the two kids pop into Dad's office. "Oh, hi, you two," Dad said softly. His cheeks turned bright pink. "Dad, what's wrong?" I asked. He sighed. Then he pulled off his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose. "I have very bad news, Erin. Very bad news." "Dad, what is it? What?" I cried. Then I saw the grin slowly spread across his face. I knew I'd been tricked again. "Gotcha," he declared. His brown eyes flashed gleefully. His cheeks were bright pink. "Gotcha again. You fall for that gag every time." Did Stine just do a fake-out scare with a sad dad? "Readers beware, you're in for a scare. Your father is a little bummed out. Or is he? Mysteries of the unknown." Not only is this just pathetic as far as practical jokes go, but Erin's dad implies he's done the "I have bad news, not" thing so many times, which is just straight up emotional abuse. Actually, Dad has good news. He's been designing theme park attractions attached to the movie studio, a la Universal Studios, which includes a horror-themed ride that takes guests through the sets of various horror movies, including the Shock Street series. And he's arranged Erin and Marty to be the first two people to ride it. It's still in development, but it's finished enough for a test run. The two kids are excited beyond belief. So what we have here is another horror theme park book. In One Day at Horrorland, Stine gave off the impression that he didn't really know much about major amusement parks. Horrorland instead evoked more of a county fair vibe. But Stine did know at least a little bit about theme parks. He has to have because he used to work at one, albeit briefly when his late 80s children's show, Eureka's Castle, moved production to Nickelodeon Studios at Universal Studios Florida. I mean, he wasn't working the Jaws ride or anything, but he was in that environment, and no doubt tapped into that experience in writing this book. So the next day, Dad brings Erin and Marty to the theme park and sets them up for the ride. And this is a ride, it's not some slow studio tour, it's a computerized tram that runs by itself, no tracks or operator, set to take riders through a series of thrills and chills. We get introduced to a woman named Linda, and here's where that carefully crafted writing from the first few chapters disappears. You initially think Linda is going to be our tour guide, our Skipper Dan for this ride. We spend far too much time describing her, pointing out how red her hair is. No way she's a pointless character who will only appear in this one scene. But no, Erin and Marty are going to ride this alone. No adults, no chaperones, nobody taking notes. This is supposed to be a test run, right? That actually makes more sense when you know the book's twist, but there's still no point in Linda being there. Linda does give the kids 2 plastic guns, an added interactive feature to the ride. They're supposed to stop the robotic monsters when you shoot them. Very Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters. And with that, the kids load up and off the tram goes. First stop, the Haunted House of Horror. The tram picked up speed. We bounced over the lawn, up to the back door. A wooden sign above the door read, "Abandon all hope." We're going to crash right into the door, I thought. I ducked and raised my hands to shield myself. But the door creaked open, and we burst inside. The tram slowed. I lowered my hands and sat up. We were in a dark, dust-covered kitchen. Wait, hold on. What are the proportions here? The tram is described as 6 cars long and is 2 seats wide. Erin and Marty are sitting side by side, so charitably it's maybe 4.5 feet wide, but probably wider. Now, this is supposed to be a recreation of a horror movie set, but there's nothing in the description to suggest that the haunted house had its hallways widened and its doors modified to not just allow a car to drive through it, but the wide turning radius of a 6-car tram. And just before you all start guessing, there's no magic in this book. There isn't actual monsters or crazy supernatural stuff going on. It's all animatronics. Super advanced animatronics. You could call this a light science fiction story, but there isn't any TARDIS magic going on here. The tram explores the house a bit somehow. There's a scary laugh, ghosts knock things over, there's skeletons, and then the ride plunges into darkness and the kids find themselves on what I've gathered is a hidden underground roller coaster. That's scary because the tram-turned roller coaster car have no restraints, no seatbelts, no handlebar to hold on to. The kids are just flopping around in their chairs. This is supposed to be a real ride for real people to ride on, right? No way this is getting past a safety check. Anyway, the ride deposits the tram back outside. It stops for a bit and the kids wonder if it's broken down when suddenly they're approached by a bunch of monsters. More specifically, people in monster suits giving out autographs. Let's see, we have Ape Face, the Toxic Wild Man, the Fabulous Frog, rejected Power Ranger baddies mostly. After the meet and greet, the tram starts up again and heads for the Cave of the Living Creeps. It's worth pointing out that Marty has been trying to pull scary pranks on Erin this entire time, getting out of the tram for a moment to make it seem like he's disappeared, yelling that something's got him. The scary prank stuff has always irked me with Goosebumps. It's both a way to artificially increase the number of cliffhangers in a book, and it strikes me as Stine being very out of touch with how children behave. But it's so much more egregious in this book because it's nothing but fake scares. It's a horror theme park ride where nothing is real. We shouldn't need these shenanigans. The ride will provide them. What this book is a girl recounting her time going to Disneyland and going on the Haunted Mansion ride, and she's trying to make it scary, but then her kid brother keeps jumping into your face and going, "Boogie, boogie, boogie!" There's already a level of disassociation in this being a story about a theme park ride. Having stupid pranks on top of that just makes it worse. But right, Cave of the Living Creeps. It's a dark artificial cave, and worms and spiders fall on the kids from the ceiling. I crossed my arms in front of me and kept my eyes straight ahead. I wondered what we would run into next. I hoped there weren't any other disgusting insects waiting to fall on us and climb all over our faces and bodies. Ahem. Neither worms nor spiders are insects, so in fact you have not encountered one insect. You see, I am an intellectual who fact-checks 25-year-old children's books for a living. Nothing sad and pathetic about that. So the tram just stops in the middle of this cave, and the kids wait for like 20 minutes with nothing happening. There's nobody around. They can't contact anybody, so I guess there's nothing to do but leave the tram and try to find an exit. But the second they get off, bam, 2 giant praying mantises show up. Now, I'm not creeped out by bugs. I know many people are, but they don't bother me. But I do have a deep, disturbed respect for the praying mantis. A normal-sized praying mantis will try to eat you if you let it. Bring your finger in close and it will do its best to consume your flesh. There are bugs that can do more harm to you, wasps, scorpions, things like that, but that's almost always out of defense. A praying mantis will try and hunt you for food, and we're kaiju size compared to them. A praying mantis the size of Clifford the Big Red Dog is a human-ending event. So the kids dramatically stomp on the ground and the praying mantises run away. I guess the idea here is that they have latent PTSD about people stepping on bugs. Mr. Stine, how dare you besmirch the praying mantis name? Erin and Marty walk out of the cave, and if this book is coming off as a random collection of unrelated set pieces, that's because that's exactly what it is. What I suspect is happening is that a shocker on Shock Street is a place for Stine to dump all of his unused ideas. Monsters, visuals. I've been sitting on this giant praying mantis idea for months now. I don't think I'm going to use it. Well, let's put it in here, along with the fabulous toad and the wolf crab monster, and we can make them part of a horror theme park ride. Next set piece, the two kids find themselves on the titular Shock Street. But when they wander into the nearby graveyard, zombies popping out of the ground, grabbing their legs and their ankles. Both kids escape by slipping off their shoes and socks, which would be a pretty small detail, but the book is constantly reminding us that Erin is running around barefoot. It will not let us forget that fact. And not because it pays off in any way. It's not because they run into a field of broken glass or anything. I mean, it's probably just an innocent detail, but after decades of Dan Schneider, I am perpetually on guard about this kind of thing. Alright, what's next? Some werewolves. A human with the face of a wolf. Clawed hands covered in black fur. A long brown snout curved in an open, toothy grin. Sharp, pointed ears above a thick tuft of black wolf fur. A female. She wore a silvery catsuit, sleek and tight-fitting. As I stared in shock, she opened her mouth in a throaty growl.
This better not awaken anything in me.
So remember those plastic guns that are supposed to stop monsters? Yeah, they finally try them here, and the guns do nothing. They just flat out don't work. Chekhov's gun is full of blanks. The kids manage to run away and come across the tram again, only this time it's full of skeletons, and the tram drives at full speed into a solid wall, passing through it as if it was a ghost. Erin and Marty are like, "What's going on?" And then a film crew walks out. "Hey kids, we're filming the new Shock Street movie, and you're in it. Sure, we didn't have you sign anything or give you an adult chaperone, and we're clearly endangering your lives, and we're not even going to have you sign a release, but you're 12, you don't know all this legal stuff. Bye." The director points them towards Shockro's House of Shocks, one of Shock Street's electricity-based villains, I guess. He says that's the way out of the ride. The ride's over. Goodbye. See you later. But as Marty enters the house, Erin spots an extension cord from the director. The director and the film crew are all robots. This is still part of the ride, I guess. But Erin is too late to stop Marty, who walks into Shockro's house and is immediately killed from an electrical blast. He's down on the floor, not breathing. Erin comes over to him when her dad steps out of the shadows, looking sad. Erin wants to know what's going on, but suddenly she doesn't recognize the man who was her father. The man reaches over and shuts her down because both Erin and Marty were robots this entire time. Say what? I can't say it comes out of nowhere. There were clues that the kids were robots, albeit minor ones. During the scene when they're watching the movie, one of the other moviegoers comments on how similar the two kids look, calling them twins, even though they're supposedly not related. But it's as if they were crafted by the same hand. When they're in Erin's dad's office, Erin makes a passing mention about her mom, which confuses Dr. Dad because we learn in this last bit that he didn't program her to think about a mother. The implications of this are just bizarre, of course. This guy effectively built an artificial intelligence more advanced than we could ever dream of creating. These two kids blow Ava from Ex Machina out of the water. They learn, they feel emotions, fear, pain, happiness, familial bonds. They form friendships, they have preferences. They are completely indistinguishable from real human beings. This is the kind of stuff that will both win you a Nobel Prize and spur protests over AI slavery. And they use these creations to test theme park rides. There are narrative advantages to this twist. You can put your protagonist in more physical danger than you could with an actual human child character. And you can kill them. Erin and Marty effectively die at the end of this book, but they're gambling on the young reader being okay with that because they weren't actual people. They were never alive by most casual definitions. The kids reading this are 9 years old. They're not going to question the nature of existence and what qualifies as sentient life. What a shame, Jared said, bending to roll the Marty robot over. He pulled up the t-shirt and fiddled with some dials on the back. Hey, it was a great idea to make robot kids to test the park. I think we can fix them. Jared opened up a panel on Marty's back and squinted at the red and green wires. All the other creatures and monsters and robots worked perfectly. Not a single bug. Not a single bug. This ride is a goddamn death trap. Where are the safety restraints? What's keeping curious children from walking out of the tram? Why did the tram just stop dead in the cave? Is every guest supposed to know that stomping will scare away the giant mantises? Are you going to buy every guest new shoes when they lose them in the graveyard? The guns you gave the kids didn't work at all. What if the guests remain on the ghost tram when it hits the wall? Will they get hurt? Walking into Chakra's house killed Marty, and you have a robot pretending to be a film director telling people to go into that house. This place is 1,000 lawsuits waiting to happen. So that's the end of our book. 2 children were tortured and then killed, and the theme park people consider that a success. That's probably the grimmest ending we've had thus far. As for how I would rewrite it, I'm not actually sure I can. Not because it doesn't have room for improvement, but because it's largely plotless. I mean, the plot is kids ride scary ride and try to survive, but the set pieces are so random, so unrelated to each other, that it comes off less like a proper story and more like a compilation of scenes from other stories, a Goosebumps clip show, just from books that don't exist. Well, the ride in the book does bear a resemblance to actual Universal Studios attractions, their animatronic illusions of riding the movies. A Shocker on Shock Street still doesn't have anything to say one way or the other about these kind of experiences, about these kind of rides and attractions. And it doesn't try and instill fear in those kind of attractions because it's a horror-themed ride. A kid being scared on the Haunted Mansion ride isn't news. Now, if you had the animatronics on It's a Small World go crazy and run amok, then you'd have a story. In any case, there's little I could do to this book that would improve it without fundamentally changing its identity as a marathon of random set pieces. Is it a good Goosebumps book? Heck, I don't know. It's just weird. None of the set pieces last long enough to feel substantial. The threats don't really build. And the few things that the book bothers to establish turn out to be red herrings, like the guns. There is potential fun to be found in bouncing around from one goofy horror idea to the next, but it lacks focus, and ultimately lacks a point. And it didn't make me upset, but I hesitate to put it in the win column. I give A Shocker on Shock Street some uncooked black beans out of 10.